some discussion with him. If you can just brief us, for the historical civilization links of India and Egypt and how they have developed over the few years.
Right. Well, you see, India and Egypt are two of the greatest ancient civilizations in the world. There were only 4 or 5 ancient civilizations 3,500, 4,000 years ago, and Egypt and India are two of these. So we have had contacts through the maritime route for more than 4,000 years. In fact, it is said that the mummies, when they did the mummification process in Egypt, that they used some of the oils which were brought from India. And Honorable Prime Minister, during the meeting, he in fact said that during the visit of President El-Sisi, he said that in Lothal, evidence was found 4,000 years ago that India was trading with Egypt. Lothal is a port in Gujarat. So this is something which is very unique because two very ancient civilizations, for centuries and centuries we've had contacts with each other. Now, in the 20th century, we had fairly close relations between Mahatma Gandhi and Saad Zaghloul, who was a famous Egyptian leader. Both of them took inspiration from each other for the respective freedom struggles. We also have a common history in the sense that both countries were ruled by the British. We fought our respective freedom struggles. Gandhiji had in fact passed through the Suez Canal in 1931 on the way to the Round Table Conference in London. However, he did not get off. He was not allowed to get off the ship by the king. Now, I think people are aware that after independence, we established diplomatic relations very quickly. Actually, within 3 days of India becoming independent, we established diplomatic relations. And there was a very close friendship which developed between President Gamal Abdel Nasser and our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. This was, one can say, the golden era of bilateral relations because there was very good understanding and friendship between them. And both countries signed the Friendship Treaty in 1955. India, Egypt and Yugoslavia together also formed the non-aligned movement in 1961. Now our high-level exchanges and contacts have continued through the years. It has been a little difficult to recapture that golden era of the 1950s, 1960s, but particularly since President El-Sisi came to power in 2014, and that was the time when Prime Minister Modi also, as you all know, was elected. The relations have continued to consolidate. President El-Sisi has been to India 3 times now. He came in October 2015 for the 3rd India-Africa Forum Summit. Then in September 2016 he came for a state visit to India, and now he's again come from 24th to 27th of January on a state visit.
Yes, so that was my next question. That recent visit of President Abdel El-Sisi, and he was invited as a chief guest at the Republic Day parade. So how it gonna contribute for the bilateral relations, and because it's being considered as a milestone as being invited for the chief.
Yes. Well, despite the very close relations that India and Egypt have had for many years and many decades, this is the first time ever that we have invited President of Egypt as the chief guest for the Republic Day parade. And this is a great honor because India now, as the 5th largest economy in the world, is being wooed by all global powers, well, almost all global powers. And all of the countries, we have an increasingly important role to play. So it is a very big honor that we can bestow on any country by inviting the leader of that country to visit India as the chief guest for the Republic. This was also the second time that President El-Sisi paid a state visit to India. He was again coming to India after a long gap of 7 years, nearly 7 years. He was very warmly received by our entire leadership, and he was very deeply touched by the hospitality which was extended by India, both in the official functions and also during the Republic Day. We have also upgraded our relationship, and we have raised it to the level of a strategic partnership, keeping in mind the multifaceted cooperation that India and Egypt enjoy.
So, some light on that, sir. So recently in New Delhi, the third session of Egypt-Indian Joint Working Group on counter-terrorism took place. So how India and, first of all, why India and Egypt are cooperating on terrorism? Is there a common concern somewhere?
Yes. Well, we are all aware of how deeply impacted India has been from terrorism, and the terrorist threats have mainly emanated from across the border, and this is something that we have suffered from very deeply for nearly 4 decades. Egypt has also suffered a large number of terrorist attacks for the last 3 decades. Of course, the groups are different, but there have been a number of attacks on Egypt which have been targeting tourism, Western tourists, even Russian tourists, and these attacks have taken place. It has caused big setbacks to Egypt's economy. Of course, successive leaders in Egypt have struggled hard to contain terrorism, but President El-Sisi has been extremely successful in being able to ensure that there is peace and stability in Egypt, and largely being able to eliminate terrorism acts. So for the last 3 years, outside the Sinai region, where there are still some groups active, there have been no attacks, except in December there was a very minor attack. Now, so both why we need to cooperate is because terrorism is a threat to both India and Egypt. The root causes of terrorism are invariably similar: combination of poverty, lack of jobs, ideology, a lot of misinformation, propaganda, provision of weapons, finance, terrorists, etc. So we have had actually visits. We recently had in February the third meeting of the Joint Working Group on Counterterrorism, and the meeting was very useful. Both countries have agreed that they need to work together in preventing cross-border terrorism, in ensuring that that terrorism in all forms is prevented, and that they need to take concerted actions against UNSC designated terrorist countries. They have also urged that no country should be used as a terrorist safe haven, and they have also called to bring to justice perpetrators of terrorist attacks. So this is something which is very positive, that both countries have almost a similar view on ensuring that terrorism is rooted out. The officials of both countries have also been discussing how they can counter rumors from being spread. Because social media these days can play a very important role in spreading false rumors and propaganda.
Yes, sir, as we know, the Indian companies are one of the largest investors in Egypt. And can you give some details, like in which areas the Indian investment is coming and what are the future plans?
Well, Indian companies are among the larger investors in Egypt. And it is interesting that about 50 large Indian companies have invested more than $3.2 billion. This investment has taken place over the years. Many of these investments are between 15 to 20 years old. The main sectors in which Indian companies have invested are chemicals, petrochemicals like carbon black, packaging. Some companies make these granules which are used to make plastic bottles, ready-made garments, pharmaceuticals, automobiles. We are assembling some cars and motorcycles, etc. Now the Indian companies are planning further investments. We expect another $800 million to be invested in the next few years by Indian companies. A very encouraging recent trend in the last 9 months actually is that 3 of our leading renewable energy companies have signed MOUs worth $18 billion. These are MOUs to develop green hydrogen in Egypt. The green hydrogen will be converted into ammonia and sold to markets in Europe primarily. So it's very interesting that Indian companies have signed such large MOUs. Now further discussions are going on regarding the projects. But once these projects are implemented, it will add a new dimension to our relationship.
So that's also, so like it's been Indian Foreign Secretary has been said that.
I wanted to add one more point. You see, one of the attractions that Egypt has is its geostrategic location, because it straddles Africa and the Middle East and also has geographical proximity to Europe. Now Egypt is part of a number of FTAs. It has FTAs with most countries, Africa, Gulf, Europe, East Mediterranean, Latin America, etc. So there are 6 important FTAs which Egypt has signed. And so if any company from India manufactures in Egypt, they will automatically have access to these markets with whom Egypt has FTAs. So that is something that we should consider and see whether we can utilize in this manner.
So India also looking for any free trade agreements? Is there a possibility?
Not yet. We finalized something with the UAE now.
Also, so recently Foreign Secretary has been said that India and Egypt looking for deeper military cooperation. So what gonna be the areas or avenues where we gonna be like India and Egypt gonna be cooperating in like military technology or sharing of intelligence or building the capacity?
Right. Well, India and Egypt have a very long history of close defense cooperation. Our armed forces have regularly been holding joint exercises, training, workshops, etc. In fact, it's very interesting that way back in the 1960s, India and Egypt tried to together develop a fighter aircraft, and they had reasonable success until the 1967 war took place. They had developed a prototype. Now, in the last 2 years, we have really stepped up our defense cooperation. We have undertaken many joint exercises. The Air Force has conducted for the first time ever 2 exercises between the fighter aircraft of both countries. The first time was in October 2021, the second time was in June and July 2022. About 9 Indian naval ships have visited Egypt. They have conducted joint exercises, etc. So it has helped to create a lot of trust and mutual confidence. Now the result of this is that both countries are looking, and the process of looking at possibilities of co-production of defense equipment. These are discussions which are going on. I think it will be a bit premature for me to mention which areas we are looking at. But certainly there has been an important shift in the manner in which Egypt is looking at India, which will, I think, we will have benefits in the future.
It means Egypt, from Egyptian side, I think there is a view as like a long-term engagement with India.
Certainly.
And so what areas will be like
Well, let us see. I mean, could be everything from spares, components. We'll have to see.